Hey everyone, welcome to Talks of Thailand. My name is Jon. Today's story is about a man who got into debt to be able to move to Thailand, even though it was probably the worst decision of his life. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, give the video a like. Let's get in to today's story. If I think about everything that happened to me in Thailand, the first time I was on the way to Thailand and something huge happened, at least for somebody like me who hates flying, perhaps that was a forewarning that I shouldn't have ignored. We'd taken off from London Heathrow, a normal takeoff, everything's going fine, then all of a sudden there's a bang, quite a loud bang. Everyone looked really startled, looking around thinking, what on earth is going on? One of the engines had apparently failed, and the plane had to circle for a while with only 3 engines. We were on a big 747, and while it was only a minor thing apparently, I was absolutely terrified. We touched down back in London a few hours later after dumping a load of fuel, and part of me said to myself, never ever think about flying again, because it's simply not worth it. The other part of me said, well, you've already paid for your holiday, the airline's going to put you on a different flight tomorrow, so accept the free hotel, have a couple of drinks before you board the flight next time, and go for it, and that's what I did. But it was a forewarning though, I really think it was. I don't know if you believe in fate or believe that things happen for a reason. Perhaps that was telling me and shouting at me as loud as it could, Thailand will destroy you. Thailand will rip you to shreds. Thailand will take everything that you value and cherish and turn you into a former shadow of yourself. Perhaps that was what was happening. I really will never know if that's the case or not. I really get it though. It's probably not the case at all, is it? Perhaps it was just an unfortuitous event that terrified me beyond belief, and I'm just looking for something to point to say to myself, at least I was warned, when I probably wasn't warned at all. We made it to Bangkok the following day, a huge sigh of relief as we touched down. I was a bag of nerves for the entire flight, and this was to the old airport. I've heard a few guys talking about that, and I like to reminisce too when I'm talking about what happened to me in Thailand. I'm starting 26 years ago. 26 years ago in the year 2000, and that's how much of my life Thailand has consumed since then. For a start, I got there, and like everybody, I just fell in love with the vibrancy and the eclectic warmth that you felt, plus the actual warmth. Taking off from a cold, dreary England and landing in the red-hot, sticky Bangkok was an eye-opening experience, and immediately I found myself at home. It was a different world back then. Quite hard to put your finger on it what it was like, and I still remember, and this happened to me over a number of years, a touch of things that had happened that I still clung to. A tout who handed out little massage leaflets right at the foot of the BTS station in Nana. That was my first introduction to things like that happening. I'd never been accosted before when I went abroad, and I'm finding I'm being accosted in the same place every single time, year after year. That's not going in the proper order though, I suppose, and I suppose I should go in the proper order. Before long, I found myself in my first bar. And I know it's one of those things and I can't describe it, and I don't know why I'm like all the other guys who just fell head over heels in love with the bars, but I did. I really did, and I have to say it like it was. Before long, the holiday's over, I'm a new man, I've fallen in love more times than I can remember, and I'm flying home. A huge connection to Thailand. No phone numbers of girls, no contact information, no I've fallen in love and I need everything I can to be in Thailand, or to be with her, or for her to be with me. None of that happened, yet. Though the seed was planted in what would become my life from there. I was single at that moment in time, in my mid-40s, and I'd never had success with a relationship at home. More than a few months here and that would fail, and that was something that happened. Relationships lasted for a month, 2 or 3, and that was it, and I'd kind of resigned myself to my fate. It just wasn't going to happen for me. I never thought I was going to have a family after that, and I just had to be by myself. Thailand opened up the possibility of having something like that though, and although I didn't meet anyone on that first trip there, I found that when I'm not in Thailand, and that was for 2 or 3 years, however many years is irrelevant really, I'm thinking about Thailand. There probably wasn't a day that went by when I wasn't thinking about Thailand during the time I wasn't there, when I wasn't thinking about the girls that I'd met, and the times that I'd had, and the drinks that I'd drunk, and the people I'd met, and everything all accumulating together to give the best experience that a guy like me could ever wish for. It was 2003, I believe, when I booked my second trip. This time I'd taken off a whole month from work, an entire month, and I just couldn't wait to get there. I hated my job with a passion, like many people do, but it was a means to an end. You go to work to pay for things. That's just how it has to be. You pay for things that you don't want to pay for. I don't want to pay for rent, electricity, council tax, gas, and all this stuff that you've got to pay for. I don't want to pay for it at all. I want to work, keep all my money, save it up, and when I've got enough, live my life. But you're not able to save enough because of the frustration of all the expensive bills that you have. Even back then, I found it expensive, and I should have, suppose, gone to university and got a degree and got a good job, but I didn't think to do that. So it was a while before I was back in Thailand because of the money situation, that's what I'm trying to say. The first time I was there, I got up to no good, and I'm saying that in a very positive way, enjoying the bars and the girls. The second time I was there, I felt like I knew what I was doing. I felt like I knew the ropes, and that allowed me to develop a connection to this girl that I met in Pattaya. It was actually my first time in Pattaya, and I absolutely fell in love with that place beyond belief. I developed this connection to her, and it wasn't like I was naive to the point that this beautiful young 20-odd-year-old girl had fallen head over heels for me, who was balding and a little bit fat. I wasn't ugly per se, and I wasn't naive to think she'd fallen in love with me, though I thought that the possibility that she would love me would be there. Real love, I thought. Not fake love, but not huge love and head over heels love, just normal. There are lots of thoughts that I'm having as time's going by, and I'm getting to know her and think about things, knowing that something could happen with this, but absolutely no possibility whatsoever of me being able to live in Thailand at that time, because I just couldn't afford to live there. I didn't have enough money. So that was one thing that made it difficult. I don't have enough money, really, apart from what I'd saved up for that particular holiday. I suppose that's very upsetting to admit to, and embarrassing when you're in your mid-40s and you don't have anything apart from what you've saved up just to be able to go to Thailand. That was irrelevant to me, though. I was in love with her from the day I met her and found that a lot of my holiday budget is going to her, and I am good with that, because she was the best part of the holiday. The reason I'm talking about her is because I fell into a bit of a trap, again very embarrassingly to admit to. When I returned home, because we kept in touch, I'd given her money before I left to go back home, believing that she would wait for me. We'd not agreed to any monthly figures, I wasn't expecting that, and I guess I probably was naive when it came to how Thailand worked and what relationships like that were like. It got to the point about 2 months later when she said, "I don't know if I want to contact you anymore. I don't know if I want to be with you anymore." And I was heartbroken because she was my connection to Thailand. She was the link to Thailand. She was the bridge between where I was and Thailand, and therefore losing that bridge would kind of cut off Thailand from me in a way, and I was heartbroken to think about it. I thought we were already an item. I thought, somehow, some point in the future we would be together. How that was going to work out, I didn't yet know, although I was considering getting a visa for her to go and live with me at home, and because that would have just made my life so much better. But she said she didn't know, and I asked her why, and she said she needed to go back to work. She said apparently she'd stopped working when we were together, and now she didn't have any money because I wasn't sending any. She didn't say that, though, directly. She said, "I need to go back to work, I need to make some more money. I will go back to work in the bar, and that's just how it will be." The way she was saying it, and I could still remember it, I can still listen to the words she was saying that were tearing me to shreds. I need to make money. I'm going to go back to work in the bar. And that was what caused me to say, "How about if I send you some money, then you don't need to do that." She said, "Okay, if you don't mind," and it was 10,000 baht a month, which wasn't a fortune back then, though that was, what I was able to save up on a monthly basis to get me to Thailand, and I wasn't able to save it anymore because I was sending it to her. Then I'm finding I'm sending her money month after month after month after month after month again, all the way up until about 2005, when I was about ready to go back to Thailand. About a month before I was due to go back, I called her and I called her and I called her again, and she never answered, ever again. I never spoke to her again, and I was devastated. Not only because at that point I didn't even realise that she'd scammed me and used me for money, and when I was going to go back, she ceased contact. Not only that, but also the fact that I thought that we were an item and we were going to build a life together. So far, 5 years of my life have been sort of dedicated to Thailand and going to Thailand and giving all my money to a girl in Thailand, and I've got this trip booked, and yes, I have enough money to pay for it. I've got a month there, and part of me didn't want to go though, because I was devastated at the thought of not being with her and not being able to see her. I did plan to go to the bar though and meet her there, see if she was there working there again, thinking maybe she'd lost her phone, and I hoped that was the case, and maybe she went back to the same bar. When I got there in 2005, I felt better immediately, although if I add everything up that I'd given to her, it was probably 250,000 baht. First thing I did, landed in the evening, straight down to Pattaya, straight to the bar where she used to work, and she wasn't there. I asked about her, but they said she left a long time ago, and that was that one over. I took at that time a bit of a step back from partying and going wild and just trying to live a normal existence, and imagine myself living in Thailand. This was 2005, and I wanted to live there, but I didn't have enough money to live there. It was just one of those really devastating and depressing times because I'm not with her anymore, and I'm not able to see her, believing that something bad might have happened to her. And I don't know, still not believing she scammed me, which she did, obviously. I went into a bar probably a couple of days later, after I hadn't really got into the bars, believing I'd never have those feelings again. And I think that's a sad thing. I never thought I could have those feelings for a girl ever again, and that's why I avoided going to the bars. But I went to another one in Pattaya, and of course I fell in love again, didn't I? This time, though, it felt even more real, and I'm starting to feel thankful that that girl did what she did, because now I've met this other girl who was perfect. She had this really cheeky little smile. She found things funny that weren't funny. She found things funny that were funny as well, and she kind of had this barrier that had completely opened up, because she would laugh at something, like someone tripped up outside the bar and she'd burst into laughter, and the guy would turn around and look, and I thought that was really funny too and cute, and I just loved her from the day I met her. This time I knew that I had to do something different because of what happened with my last girlfriend, and of course this was 2005. Thailand was a very different place back then. That's 20 years ago. She didn't have a lot of money, she came from a very poor place, and the thought of being with me and, latching onto me must have been very appealing to her, or so I thought. You have to remember, you didn't have the huge social media and the presence of how people lived in different parts of the world. You didn't have anything like that back then. It was a lot more closed, the world was a lot bigger. I think that's why, after she'd been with me for a few days, I'm thinking, how about you go and live with me in my country? How would that sound to you? We can build a life together, maybe have a family. I was getting on a bit, probably late 40s at this point. She was early 20s, but no kids though. She had no kids, which was a huge thing. But I thought, how about we build a life together and go and live together in my country? She's saying she'd love to do that. She'd never met a guy like me before, and all the stuff that they say. She stayed with me for the rest of that holiday, and I went to Bangkok with her for the last week there, and that's when I contacted this agent about helping me to get her a visa. We talked about it and what you could do, and I think it was a fiancé visa, or you would need to get married to do that, and that was a bit easier. But I suppose back then, and from it what's like today, and from what I've heard about, and what I've read about, because Thailand still is my life today, if you have a job, which I did, if you have a house, which I did, I rented it, but if we were married and had all the things for that, we could go and live there together. It would be worth going through this difficult process to get it, and they would give it to you if you had everything you needed. That's exactly what I wanted to do. It was a very exciting time for me because although I felt heartbroken when I was returning home, we were engaged at this point to get married, and we were going to get married when I went back next. As soon as I could go back to Thailand, she was going to go and live with me. I found the agent to help and everything, and it was moving in the right direction. I believe life is moving in the right direction. When I was home and we're speaking and I'm upset not to be with her, I am sending money to her, but not like it was happening last time, because we already had plans in place, firm plans about what we were going to do. All I had to come up with was, where am I going to get the money to do this? For a start off, I'm going to need to get married, I'm going to need to fly to Thailand, she's going to need to get a plane ticket and the visa and a little bit of money to have about a month in Thailand because of how long it would take to do everything. Perhaps you wouldn't get the visa in time, and even still, how much is all this going to cost? I decided I would take a cash advance on my credit card. I took £5,000, which was the entire limit, and about 3 months after I was back, we're in 2006 at this point, and I had my holiday allowance, and I used it all at once, straight back to Thailand. We got married. She was waiting for me. She was perfect. We met in Bangkok, and well, it was just a whirlwind romance. Now I was married, and I couldn't believe that I actually was married. Never thought I would be married again, and it had all come off, and it was great. We put in for the visa on my 3rd day back in Thailand, and that was an amazing experience, because it felt like we were one step closer. And in a way, I knew I had to return home soon, and she would be coming with me, or she wouldn't be if the visa wasn't approved. About 3 weeks later, a few days before I was due to go back, we heard the news that the visa had been approved, and that was a heart-stopping moment, because all these dreams and all these thoughts about what it was going to be like and her living with me, they weren't dreams anymore. It was going to come true, and we were both so happy and excited about that. I can even remember flying back to the UK with her, and she was in awe of this big aeroplane. She'd never been on an airplane before. She was just perfect. I was like taking a bit of Thailand home with me. I was like taking one of the bars back home with me, or a little bit of the bars, and I was going to be able to, be in a Thailand bar every single day in my own living room. That was what I was thinking, and it was absolutely amazing. And I was just gobsmacked about how amazing I could feel and how amazing life could be, because I'd never felt like that before. I didn't realise I could feel so happy. I really didn't realise. I had no idea. It was just all these dreams coming true all at once, and it was fantastic. We didn't even go and visit the family when we got married. Apparently, she said that she wanted to go first and then we could get married next time. At this point, I'd already promised her that we would go to Thailand once a year and get married then. I mean, we were married, I'm talking about the village marriage. How I was going to afford to be able to do that, I didn't yet know, though I'd already promised her once a year to Thailand, and everything can be great from there. When I showed her where I was living and when I showed her England over the first couple of days of us being there, I think she was very underwhelmed. I mean, that will be putting it lightly. She'd heard of England from friends of friends and thought it was going to be something very different than it was. She wasn't ready for the cold, which was a shock to her system. She wasn't ready for the rigid way of life. I suppose that's true too. She wasn't ready for how everything seemed to be so closed and the rules seemed to be stricter and everything like that. Aside from that, I believe she was settling in okay, and I was just working as hard as I could, thinking about trying to get another job and get a little bit higher paying job, maybe with a better commission, because I did sales. Not very well, but I did sales. Maybe I could get a little bit of a better job and only need to make a bit more. Then I can fulfill my promise to take her to Thailand every year. It was about 3 months after we'd been back when I actually landed this new job. And it was quite a lot better paid than the other one, and I worked as hard as I could. I worked like a dog, and I thought life was great. I would come home and she was keeping up her end of the deal. She would make drinks for me, she did a bit of behind the bar stuff when she worked, and I got a cocktail shaker and she would make drinks and she would look beautiful when she did it, and it was just picture perfect perfection to be with her and to be able to live like that. Dinner would be ready, and on the weekends we would go places. I'd take her to the Asian supermarket so she could buy things she wanted, and it was just what I thought really brilliant. She'd really got me out of my shell at work and helped me to earn more money. By the time we were going to Thailand for our first trip in 2007, I'd already paid off the credit card that I used to get her to the UK, and we had enough money for this great trip. It was going to be a month again, the whole holiday allowance at once, plus a few extra days which I was going to claim in sick for, and we were going to go and visit her family for the first time, because it really was something that I needed to do. We needed to have the cultural ceremony, we were going to do everything properly, and I had the money saved up to be able to do that thanks to extremely hard work. It's funny though, isn't it? Why didn't I work that hard when I was single? Why didn't I work that hard for myself? Why was I doing it for her? I don't know. In a way, I was doing it for me because of how she made me feel when I was with her. I suppose that's why I would always say, and what I would always look at as being the reason. We arrived in Thailand very happy to be there. An amazing time. Went to the beach for a little bit of time first, then we headed up to the family in Udon Thani. When people describe Isan, I always think and try to picture what they're describing, and to me, most of the descriptions are somewhat accurate, just not as accurate as, my description, because I fell in love with Isan. I didn't see the ways of people doing things as backwards like many people seem to do. I didn't see it as primitive. I just saw it as a different sort of developed, and I believe that was one of the big problems I made, and one of the big mistakes I made, because that's the thing. I saw Thailand as being a developed in a different way kind of country. Okay, it's not like where I'm from, where everything is rigid and everything is orderly, and the bins are taking on a specific day. There's not, stuff strewn everywhere. It's different. People don't light fires in my country. It's a different sort of developed. When we arrived there, I just felt this connection to the place, perhaps because of how happy she seemed to be, perhaps because of how in tune with her family she was, perhaps because her family were friendly and kind, and although they had absolutely nothing, they had enough to be able to share what they had, even though it wasn't something I would be able to enjoy. I can remember I was staying in the family's house the first night, already had the introductions, already agreed to what we were going to do over the phone a long time ago, and I knew everything well up front. I wasn't in for any nasty shocks. She woke me up the following morning about 4 a.m. and she said, "Do you want to go with me and my family? We're going to go and look for frogs." What do you mean, you're going to go and look for frogs? Yes, just like that, we're going to look for frogs. Now, this is the best time to get them in the morning. I was up for anything, that was who I was. If you want to go and do that, I'll do that with you, not thinking that they're going to eat them or anything. We head out and it's dark and they've got those little torches on their heads, looking around, and something squeals, "Oh, I found a crab," or whatever they said. Apparently it was one of those crabs that were in the Thai black crabs that they put in spicy somtam. I could never eat that, especially the fermented fish. That was her absolute favourite, and I was spending a lot of money on finding that stuff in the UK. But not to my taste at all. I think that's the polite way to put it. But they're catching frogs, and I was just so drawn to this way of life, how everything seemed to be about basic living as opposed to complicated, complex, technological living. I was loving it. I really was, and I was just loving everything about it. I didn't find it odd that they were catching frogs. Then they went back and they ate them and they made this lab out of it. I didn't find that odd. I found it appealing. I found it I just, don't want to meant to say I was loving it, and I felt an affinity to that place. The following morning, it was going to pick mushrooms, looking for mushrooms. Let's go and look for them, and she's showing me how to do it, and found a lot of them. Then someone comes around and buys some of them, and she was really happy. Oh, we've made 200 baht. 200 baht. Yes, that's great. And we got up at 3 a.m. for that, and we were walking around for 4 hours. 200 baht. It was just how happy she was with the simple things, and how everyone seemed to be happy with really basic, simple things, that I was starting to fall in love with that part of Thailand beyond any imagination. I didn't believe it was possible to feel as good as that. A couple of days later, after more adventures and looking around the area, look at the school that she went to and thinking that was so basic, looking at the hospital where she was born and that's basic too. Not basic in a bad way, basic in it's just different kind of way. That was when we had the village ceremony. The whole village came, and it was an exciting experience for me. I loved the way that the monks came to bless us. I loved how they had things tied around our wrists. I loved how the family seemed to be happy. And yes, I paid sinsot, but I found that was fine. I still believe that sometimes instances like that are when you should pay. It was only 100,000 baht, which was still a chunk of money. Just 100,000, and they were happy. She didn't have any kids, and yes, she worked in a bar when I met her, so it wasn't exactly the traditional sense, though it didn't really matter to me. I was happy, and she was happy. The wedding itself didn't cost that much, and we bought a couple of pigs, and that was one thing that I had to draw the line of basically telling myself this is great, because I don't believe in animal cruelty at all, and the way they got rid of that pig was not very pleasant. Let's just say big wooden bat. I didn't like that. That was struggling to see. But again, that's just how they do it, and if that's how they do it, that's how they do it. Now that we were married in the village sense, we had plans to go to the beach again because we loved it the first time, and just said to her, if you want to stay here, I don't mind, we'll stay here until we go back. She said, okay, let's stay a week longer and then we can have a couple of days at the beach, and that was great with me because it was cheap for a start of, and I was just being introduced to lots of different things, lots of different ideas about what life was like there, and I was starting to fall in love with it more and more. I suppose that was when the first conversation came up about this could be a place where we could retire. We see a couple of huge houses built by other foreigners in the area, and I went to meet a guy who's been living there, talking about how it was the best decision he'd ever made, living there for a couple of years, a nice house, beautiful wife, great family, and I'm thinking, well, this could be me too. How I'm going to make that a possibility, though, I had absolutely no idea, though this could be an idea. When we left and went to the beach, we had a great time there as well, just I felt like where she was from was the place where I wanted to be. She never tried to pressure anything. I mean, I'm trying to say that this not because she seemed to like it and therefore I liked it. It wasn't like that. It wasn't that she was talking about wanting to live there. It was, I wanted to live there. It wasn't like that at all. It was, she seemed to really be attracted to just being with me wherever we were, and I was loving it. And perhaps she was using that enthusiasm to be enthusiastic about that as well, because that's what you do when you're a couple, and I'm thinking nothing's wrong whatsoever. We returned back home, and that was a huge anticlimax to what I felt was a pivotal life moment. Not only was I married, I was now married the Thai way, and I was welcomed into the village with open arms, and the family were there, everyone was great, and it was just a question of going back again the next year. Life continued, everything's going great. I'm working absolutely madly, as hard as I possibly can, picking up the phone and not putting it down until the end of the day, and then my fingers are sore from typing numbers, just trying to make as many sales as possible. That's the thing, when you have a purpose, you start to make money. And, flash forward to the next year when we're there again, back up to the village, same little experiences, going to get frogs and going to get mushrooms. One thing happened though, which at the time I thought was quaint and really interesting and very cultural, though again, perhaps it was a forewarning. It was when she said we needed to go and get blessed by the monk. They had this little temple out in the jungle, not too far into it, but it's beautiful little temple, or apparently it was. You go in there and the monk can bless you and give us good luck, and I was up for it. I was up for anything. I was loving everything, as I'd already tried to get across. This is everything that I believe life's meant to be, so we go out there, and while at the time I just went along with it, you have to give some money to the monk, and how much? I gave him a couple of thousand baht, and why are we giving the monk money? I wasn't thinking that at the time. I was thinking this is just how things were done. If I think about it though, when we were there, 3,000 baht I gave to that monk, and he did what he was doing. He did this chanting and whining and splashing of water. Just, there were a couple of other people coming and going, and I'm thinking, how much is this monk making? I've there been thinking it's for the cultural reason, it's for the temple, and they're putting the money into the temple, not realising that it's maybe a bit of a scam. Something cropped up a number of years later when it was out in the open that perhaps the monk had been taking the funds and using it for the wrong things. That was a couple of years later though. But now we did that, we had good luck apparently. Now we were set up properly, apparently, and we just enjoyed that holiday together. I believe this was, to be honest, all the years blend together, so this could have been 2008 or 2009. The years really do blend together because, I went to Thailand lots of times, and although I felt so at home in the village, I felt like I wanted to be there. That's when I'm starting to get to the point that I'm working all year as hard as I can, and we can come to Thailand and have a great time, and then we go back, and we're starting from zero all over again. At this point, I'm giving her a decent amount of money on a monthly basis, probably about 300 quid, and she's giving some of that to her family, and we can see that the family's bought with it, so it's not like they're absconding off with money and stealing. It wasn't about that. We're just back again after this trip, amazing time, let's call it 2009. I'm very close to 50, and there's no plans for how we can actually get to live in Thailand in the future. That was the biggest problem. We always talked about it, and it was what we talked about more than anything else, and that we were going to live in the village. That's where we both wanted to be, and that's the thing. The question was, how do we actually make this a reality? How do we make this possible? How do we make it work? I'm not talking about that with her, I'm talking about doing it with her, saying soon and in a couple of years' time, I'm saying that. It's just in my head when I'm saying it to myself, how do I make this a reality? I came up with lots of things, but one time I came up with a reasonable solution, I thought, and this wasn't yet. This was on our next trip, when I blew through another whole year's work, living it up and having a great time in Thailand in the village, looking at land, and well, if we didn't spend on this holiday, we could have bought that land. I came up with a solution, because I was always someone who used his credit card to pay for things, and I would pay that credit card back. I never missed a payment, I never did anything negative to reduce my credit. I had a car loan which I'd recently paid off. I had another car loan before that which had been paid off. And again, did we need a car with a car loan? No, it was just due to one of those things that we did. But it was a new car that we bought, and I'm thinking, perhaps I have good credit. I had met a guy, the same guy by the way, who's still living there, the guy I talked to who said it was the best decision to move to Udon Thani. I met him on that time there too when we were talking about how long he'd been there, and he was a teacher originally. He'd been teaching down in Bangkok, and he'd moved up there with his wife. That was what it was. I said, well, do people teach in Udon? Do people teach here? And he said people do all the time. You're not going to make a lot of money, but you can teach. And I'm starting to feel quite attracted to this idea of doing something like that and maybe living in Thailand. And I'm thinking the best way for me to be able to actually get money is to somehow take out a loan to be able to set ourselves up in Thailand. That's what we could need. Get a little house, a little bit of land for the house to be built on, and for our car. It came to the point where, nothing happened for the next whole year, and we blew through money again for the next trip. Though I was diligently using the credit card, I was diligently paying it back. We paid off the car loan again on another one, just a small one. Everything seemed to be set up and in place. We kind of on that trip looked around at teaching possibilities. And if you look, it didn't seem to be that difficult to get a job, especially in the outer stick schools where most people didn't want to live. And if you can be an English teacher and you're okay on 20,000 a month, that was going to be what they would pay. Not a lot of money, but if you're okay with that, then I could pay 100 quid back a month for the money I borrowed. And I don't know what I was thinking, really, completely losing my mind, but this is the idea that I'm drawing myself towards. My wife was always talking about how she'd be able to do something too. Maybe she could sell noodles, maybe she could sell drinks or something like that. It came to the point where, and this is about 2011, it was 2011, that one I can remember definitely, where the idea was that we can move to Thailand, buy a tiny bit of land, build a tiny house, buy a motorcycle, not a car because we didn't have enough money in the bank for the visa, because I could take out a personal loan, max out 2 credit cards, and the idea was I'll pay it back slowly. If I have to have bad credit after that because I can't pay it back the right amount, never mind. I'll pay them 100 quid a month, I'll call them up, they'll stop the interest, and I'm going absolutely mad if I think about it. So technically think that I was going to completely destroy my credit to get set up in Thailand. Quite worrying. I was promised a job though, and if I could get a job, then that was the most important thing. I'm probably being a bit garbled here by talking about what I'm talking about, because it was a difficult time to actually come to the conclusion of what we needed to do. On the other hand, everything felt like it was moving in the right direction. Quite embarrassing to admit though, that that's exactly what happened. I managed to get together about £35,000, and this was 2011, and we moved to Thailand, and I stopped paying the loans and the credit card straight away. I did land a job, rented a tiny place in Udon to start with, and I landed this job and I stopped paying them, and I called them up, and I said, everything's gone wrong, I've lost my job, can I arrange a payment plan? They said no originally, but eventually it was sorted, and they agreed I could pay 100 quid a month for the time being until something happened, and that kind of sorted the issue out for the time being, which made me feel quite comfortable. It also made me think, okay, now I'm set up in Thailand, and it's great. We found a little bit of land close to her family's house that was only 200,000 baht, and we began building our house. Not our dream house. Again, how I'm thinking and talking to her, this can be our temporary house, and eventually we'll have a really big house like this other guy. Hadn't gone to see him yet in 2011, not once. And when I went to go and see him about a month after we were there, he'd already gone. What happened? Have problem with wife, and that was it. Nothing to make me feel scared, though, like it should have done, because that wasn't going to happen to me. Let's just fast forward to 2012, when I was already teaching. 18,000 baht a month salary. Again, not a lot of money. Paying back 100 quid a month for the money that I'd borrowed that I wasn't able to pay back properly, but it was something. We had this little house built, and after the 35 grand I took, I had just enough money in the bank for the marriage visa. And I believe everything is going according to plan. Everything's great, because we don't really need a lot of money. I mean, we don't need a lot of money at all. I believe life has just fallen into place. Because not only am I with my dream wife, not only was she a bar girl and I have a bar girl with me all the time, and not only am I living where I want to be, I have a house that belongs to us. Or her. I always said us, and I suppose that was a big error. I'd never owned a house before at home, and I just felt like everything fell into place. I really do believe that everything fell into place so well that I suppose I was powerless to stop anything bad happening after that, knowing that I didn't have a plan B. Knowing that nothing else could be right from there, knowing that nothing else could go right from there. Nothing. It was like, what could go wrong? What I'm trying to say is, everything was put into this, and I didn't think something could go wrong, and if it did, there was no plan B, and that was a difficult thing, and I suppose I should have had a plan B, but if I had to have a plan B, I wouldn't have been able to afford what we did. From there, though, we just began living. I mean, we were living ever since we got there, and it's quite difficult to contemplate how I thought doing all that was a good idea. You also have to understand that at that point, I didn't have any money at all. I had no possibility of saving money to get what we wanted, because we were just using all the money just to be in Thailand, and the possibility to do anything else was gone. It was like this was it. Either do this and we don't do anything, or do what we can do and move from there. That was the reason I was happy with it, because for me, living like we were living was perfect. I didn't need anything else, and I didn't want for anything else. In a way, though, if you look about it from the other side, we were making the most of a bad situation. It really was. And we got to the point where 2013, and it was a very basic life. But she doesn't seem to want for anything too, just like I didn't, and that was the thing. The fact that she doesn't seem to want for anything, and I didn't want for anything too, really didn't. And I was okay eating rice and just normal Thai food that they ate in the village. I was okay with it. I never got used to the somtam, but that wasn't a problem. I couldn't hack that. The fermented fish, like I said, it was awful, and I still wish I could, but I couldn't. I'm just trying to get across that life was perfect. Did we have enough money to go to the beach? No, we didn't. Did we have enough money to go to Bangkok? No. Did we have enough money to do anything apart from exist? No. But existing like that was better than living like the way I used to live in England. It was so much better that I was just good with it. I didn't realise or think that for my wife perhaps it wasn't good enough. It would have been good enough if she stayed in the village and never went to work in the bar and never went to meet a foreigner, and she stayed with a farmhand or something and she had what she had. That would have been good. That would have been perfect for her, because he would have been better than the other people in the village. It didn't seem maybe like it was good enough for her though anymore, because she had a foreigner, so she should have had more than that, like the other guys who had big houses, and maybe that was running through her mind, because although I believe life's going well, and she knows we don't have a lot of money, she seems to expect things, little bits of things, and although not a lot of money, and although 100 quid a month is going back to England to pay off those problem loans that I'd taken out to be able to make this a reality, she's still starting to want bits for the family every now and then. That was when I started to dip into my visa extension money, which was a very upsetting thing to do. 400,000 baht in the bank just was there to keep. It wasn't meant to be spent, but I started dipping in thinking I'll worry about it later. I'd spoken to a guy who was living in the village. This is a new guy who arrived about the same time as me, and he got a visa from down in Pattaya, where he just paid 20,000 baht to get this dodgy retirement extension, and I was thinking I can do the same thing if needs be. When I realised that was a possibility, I kind of calmed down a bit and allowed the next whole year to pass until I needed to renew my visa, in probably 2014. Again, you have to understand the years could be off by a bit. Just, that's not important. I'm just trying to get through it as easily as I can. It gets to the point in 2014 where I was open to the possibility of getting this visa. Therefore, okay, I can step in and fund things that might need funding occasionally. And I only had about 200,000 baht left, which should have told me everything I needed to know. You're not making enough money to be able to sustain this lifestyle, and you're eating into the visa money. I should have known. I suppose I was just going along with it, thinking that, okay, I'll be good for enough time, and then this visa worked. It cost 20,000 baht for this dodgy retirement extension, and it was only available from down in Pattaya, but it worked, and that felt like a huge weight was lifted. I was still working, and I'm happy with it, and that's the thing. I was happy, and life was like it was good enough for me. It didn't, and I didn't catch on at all, appear like it was good enough for my wife, and I didn't catch on. She wasn't behaving the same way anymore, and this was probably ever since we moved to the village. Just I didn't pick up on the fact that she wasn't behaving the same way for a long time. It was only when I'm starting to miss old ways and I want to have a good time like we used to do. Just a free good time. I'm talking about, where she doesn't want to do it anymore, or she's got an excuse, or something's gone wrong. And I suppose I'm starting to notice this in 2014, and now I'm in my early 50s, and I'm not looking at the situation and thinking I'm completely flat broke. By everything I have is in her name, and I owe tens of thousands of pounds back at home. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking life is good because this is, as I mentioned, making the best of a very bad situation. I need to be with her. I need to be in Thailand. I need to be happy, and this is the only way to make that real. Time's passing again, though, and that money is being spent extra than I should have done, which is coming out of that 200,000 baht that I had left, and it's not going to me. That's going to her and her family to do little bits of things here and there, and while it's probably not a lot of money, to me it was everything. It was about 2016, or at the start of 2016, when all of that money ran out too. I didn't have any savings whatsoever, and I was a few days away from getting my teaching salary of 18,000 baht. The writing was on the wall, but I refused to see the writing on the wall. I refused because I just clung on to the understanding that I can live on 100 baht a day if I need to. I don't need air conditioning, I don't need anything. I just need to be with her. I need to be able to exist like this, and I can do that. I've done it. She could do it as well. The difference was she didn't want to do that. She wanted more, and she wanted better. When there's no money left for me to dip into, to top up our lifestyle and to help out with things, that was when she became a lot more abrupt and a lot more harsh towards me, not sleeping in the same bed as me. It's really cruel, because if she was acting right, everything would have been fine. If she was just normal, everything would have been fine. I'm still not seeing the writing on the wall, though, refusing to admit anything's gone wrong. We'd been together for a long time. At this point, I'm in love with her. She's everything to me. I believe life is what it needs to be. Okay, I didn't have any emergencies planned for the future, although I didn't care. I didn't care about anything apart from being with her and the then and now. When there was no money, though, to step in and give to her family for little bits that they needed every now and then, that was when it was a slow deterioration until probably a number of months later, when it was clear that she'd been with this guy in the village, and that broke my heart. It really destroyed me. We'd been trying for a child, although that never happened. Just she was with this guy in the village, and how she just didn't feel bad about that, or she didn't feel like something that she should have done. She shouldn't have done. I don't know why she didn't feel bad. She was mine. She was my wife, and it destroyed me. I was prepared to overlook it. I told her, I'll forgive you, and she said okay. But she did it again and again and again, and it got to the point, and this is the most embarrassing bit, where she was spending half her time with me and half her time with this other guy, and this is awful to think about. I mean, that was what was happening, but I was taking it because I didn't have any other choice. I had to take it. No other possibilities of things to think about or do, and what was I meant to do? I can't do anything at all. Eventually, it all fell apart, and she wanted to get a divorce, and the reason I accepted that was because she said that she'll sell the motorcycle and give the money to me. It was only 25,000 baht, but that was what it was. Plus, it landed on the same time that I got my last salary, which was 18,000 baht. I wasn't working with a work permit, by the way, so I had nearly 50,000 baht. I managed to claw a bit together, and that 50,000 allowed me to get out of that place around the end of 2016, early 2017, and I'm in a very cheap hotel in Bangkok, looking at my life situation, looking at all the money I owe. Luckily, nothing happened about that, because I was paying 100 quid a month, and it's just like my whole life has come crashing down and collapsed around me, and all I could think about doing was, desperately, trying to find a job in Bangkok to make a bit more money, and just do what I could to continue living. Basically, like I said, I can live on no money, and that was the best choice for me. Either do that or go back home, and I'll never ever have a chance to come back to Thailand again, and unfortunately that's what I did. I got down to my last 5,000 baht when I landed the job. I got it through an agency, which was quite fortuitous, down to my last 5,000 baht, and it started halfway through the month, and I managed to make that last until I got half the salary. I rented this tiny place in Ratchada, bought an old motorcycle to get to and from work because I couldn't afford public transport or taxis, and it was how I lived through 2017. Not putting any money away, just still paying back the loan. It's like I couldn't fathom what to do from there. I was going to the bars when I could, which was not that often, and that's the only thing that made me feel better, trying to meet a girl and come up with a solution. The problem was, no matter what I could think of, there was nothing that could happen to allow me to get to a point when I could retire. I wasn't thinking about retirement. I was thinking if I was 70 and having to still work, then so be it, as long as I'm in Thailand. It was very difficult, really difficult, because I met this girl and we started seeing each other a lot. She was really beautiful. Not as beautiful as my wife was, but she was beautiful. But I just couldn't afford to maintain the relationship, though, as much as I wanted to. Why couldn't she? Okay, she was younger than me, she was 24, and she was a bar girl, but she had 2 kids. Why couldn't she just stay at home or stay in the tiny room all day and not do anything? If I could have not done anything, that would have been a dream come true. I don't do anything and just live and exist and I don't need anything. That's what I thought I wanted more than anything. But I couldn't do that though. I couldn't just lounge around all day just relaxing and have someone work for me. I would have if I could. Just, I'm the guy, so I can't. So I wasn't that good enough for her. She didn't have to work. She didn't have to work in the bar. She didn't have to do anything. She didn't have to get drunk with people. She didn't have to do anything bad. But no, she didn't want that. And I'm teaching and paying back what I can. And I've probably paid back, since I had those loans, about £3,500 across multiple years of the £35,000. And I'm doing that, yet I don't think it's going to be a problem for the future because it's like I have no choice. If I completely forgot about that, that would have been written off in England and I didn't want to write it off yet. Although I wished I could, but I didn't. This is going on and I had a big problem like so many other people did when COVID hit. Because unfortunately, although many teachers kept their jobs, I didn't. I had the wherewithal to keep a little bit of emergency funds in the bank, which was not a lot, but it was about 50,000 baht, and that was the lowest of the low points for me, because I didn't have a choice. I had to go back to the UK. I had to. I couldn't not. I needed to. It was the lowest of the low. It really, really was, because I tried to make Thailand work for all that time. I'd been in love, and it went wrong. I'd lost all that money that I'd borrowed. Now I met another girl who didn't want me because I couldn't provide what she wanted. Now I can't have a job. I couldn't find another one quick enough, and I'm landing back in England in 2020 into an awful situation. Very difficult to find a place to live. Had to get government assistance, which luckily was available to me, even though many people told me, you're never going to be able to get it because you've been abroad for so long. I mean, they don't know, do they? I mean, they might. They just didn't care. And I found that life just crashed down around me, and I didn't know what to do. I decided, though, I needed to declare bankruptcy. That's something I had to do so I could write off this debt, and I did. And this is going on over a number of months when I found another job and I started saving money yet again. Not a lot of money though, and I'm just living, eating the cheapest food, not turning the heating on, not doing anything. And it was about 2023 when I was, round about 60 now, 2023, or in my 60s, when I had enough money to go back to Thailand. Just try to do a bit more teaching because that's the only thing I could do. I needed to be there. Thailand's part of my life. Thailand is my life, and I didn't feel complete without it. So I arrived in 2023 with about £10,000, found a job teaching because I'd done it before. I had the experience. I already had a certificate to teach and it worked. I suppose given the fact I was saving money, I wasn't eating a lot of food, I wasn't fat, I was, quite young for my age. One of the things I did keep myself occupied was to exercise, so that's maybe why I got that job even though I was older than the sort of person they would have preferred. That's where I remain today. I found another girlfriend and she's 46, and I believe that was the solution because I can't afford to have the girl of my dreams, which is a bar girl, just she wasn't a bar girl. Or maybe she was in her younger days, and that's how I'm living now, with her. No plans for the future, no plans for anything other than just continue living like this until I can't live anymore, because Thailand has me. Then I take it right back to the start, that plane incident that happened, which nearly made me not even go in the first place, thinking if I did, would my life have been better? It probably would have been if I didn't go. But I came to Thailand and I became a Thailand guy like so many people do, and I can't not be a Thailand guy. I'm a Thailand guy through and through, and Thailand has defined me and who I am, and will be like that till the day I die. It's a long, drawn-out thing for me, Thailand. It took the last 25 years of my life, and would I change it? I would probably say I would. I would never have gone, and if I had never have gone, it would never have taken hold of me, and I wouldn't be living in my 60s, working for 35,000 baht a month, living in a small room with a 46-year-old. Okay, she's an ex-bar girl who has 3 kids and who I do care about and love, and she's not only my dream, though. She's all I can have. She doesn't work. She doesn't do anything. She just is good with that. How long will I be able to continue this? I don't know. But that's where I am now, and this is where I will remain. To anyone, if you're that way inclined and you find yourself addicted to Thailand, when you get there, make sure that you can afford it. Make sure you can afford it in a good way. I live in Thailand in the worst way possible. For as long as I've lived in Thailand, I made decisions to be able to be in Thailand, which I regret. But I don't regret that because that's the only thing that could have got me there in the first place. I'll leave you now and I will get up and I will go to work tomorrow morning. I don't dislike it, just I'd rather not do it. That's the thing. If I could do nothing and have what I'm having now as income, life would be perfect. It really would be. But I can't though. I've got to work and there's nothing anywhere that can put me in a place to tell me that I don't have to work anytime soon. And I've come to terms with that. And whatever will be, will be.